Hello, welcome back to another episode of Pop Swap Garage. Say hi to 240Z, aka the Workbench. Yeah, I'm gonna get back to this. I'm gonna get that elsewhere. Not a whole lot to do to get it on the road, but when you got multiple projects, it just doesn't work out for you. 510, lots to do. Don't want to talk about it. And been dabbling back with that, which I'm going to get back to now that the manual conversion of this car has been complete, which is the 1994 Gran Turismo Cedric Y32. Came up with a great deal for all the components for a manual swap, which, as you can see, is a manual swapped. Looks pretty good, but let me turn around. But what I'm equally excited about, and I did the custom stuff to the swap. I paid, work at a dealership, paid a technician to do the heavy lifting because I'm tired of doing the heavy lifting. I'm 56. I don't want to do the heavy lifting anymore. So I paid him to pull out the automatic, put the manual in the drive shaft. I already had done a custom clutch. Did that at home, had that in the car, drove to work with it. Drill a hole for the master cylinder, all that at home. I did make the custom braided line after we put it in, so I knew how long to make it. So I did all of anything that was custom. I did, and then the heavy lifting, I'm like, yeah, he can have at it. A couple $100 literally is all I had to pay for that part. It was well worth it. Well worth it. So today I am testing out not the shifter, but my parking brake. This switch, which if you know the Y32, if you've got one, you know that this releases the parking brake. But I wanted it to engage the parking brake. So I figured out a way to do that. So it was complicated and months of work, a lot harder than the freaking manual transmission swap, actually. But I figured it out. I'm going to offer kits. I'm not offering the information. It's very complicated, and it does require some custom welding for a special bracket to hold the cable in place. I'm going to offer that. It is labor intensive, but not the actual kit. The kit is actually easy. I'm going to make the connectors plug and play. The connector for the brake switch is embedded in the switch. It's a T connector, but you can't buy a generic T connector. It's not going to work. It doesn't engage. It's got these wings, and the body's got the slight difference in width on the fat part, gets a little bit narrow at the top, so it doesn't fit a regular T connector. I've got the custom connectors that will connect to the switch. The electronic controller will have that capability of plugging straight to the switch. It'll also have the other end of the connector so it plugs to the harness, because the actuator that works the brake, which is installed in a very convenient location, which I'll show you in the test video. So long story short, the box itself is plug and play. It's just going to plug up literally. There'll be a few add a fuse that will need to be added, so you have to run that, but you're gonna have everything apart to be able to do that. The add a fuse has got to give the microprocessor basically a separate power supply that gets dropped from 12 volts to 5, so that microprocessor can do its thing. It's not just a microprocessor, but that's the brains of the whole operation. It cannot run 12 volt, so you have to, I played with motor controllers and relay modules and all that kind of stuff to come up with the best way to control the actuator. But the complicated thing to do, and it's, if you're a good radio guy, like you're good, with taking interior panels off, it does require a lot of panels to come off. Most of the panels, not the whole dash. The dash doesn't come off. but the surround has got to come off. Okay, that's got to come off. You cannot get to the screws without taking the upper and lower panels underneath the steering wheel. And luckily I've got a detachable steering wheel. It's a little bit harder work when you got a steering wheel you got to work around, but it's possible. You do not have to take the steering wheel off. But the upper and lower panels on the driver's underneath the steering wheel, the upper and lower panels over here. So this lower panel pulls straight off. There's no clips. This panel has screws getting blocked by the glove box. So you literally have to take the glove box back off, to take the hinges off, to be able to get to the holes as well, to take the glove box door off to get to the screws for this panel down here. So long story short, this part comes off. This is simple. A screw here and on the other side, a screw underneath this panel. Of course, this panel comes up. So 4 screws gets this thing off. You don't really need to take the pocket out. I took it out just so I could see what kind of room I was working with. So that's some of the hardware there. It's in the actuator, but there's, like I said, a bunch of little pieces that makes it all come together. So this center console comes out, this surround comes off. Like I said, to get the screws for the surround, you got to take both the upper and lower panels on left or right off, and to get that mid panel, you got to take the glove box apart. Sounds complicated. It's not that complicated. Once you have all these panels out, you have easy access to the vents that are just behind, under and behind the radio. There's some vents. You have to take those off. Really, that's just one screw. Once you got all that out, it's pretty easy. You know, of course, with the radio out and everything, it's easy to get to. And then you have to reroute the cable, which, you know, you could try to pull that cable out. It ain't going to happen. So you've got to take all this off to be able to pull that cable out and loop it underneath the vents, and then run it back to right about there underneath this panel where my bracket picks it up and holds it. It's mainly for the Y32 guys who've done the manual conversion and have no parking brake solution. And I'm turning this switch into a switch to engage, disengage the parking brake, and reverse motion if needed. So I built that into the logic. Got into writing a little software, and yeah, that's interesting. So that, I think that's everything. Like just a description of what I did. Unfortunately, I don't have videos on the development because I have about 4 beta versions of the hardware and about 6 beta versions of the electronics to run it. So a lot of work went into it, and yeah, I'll show you the demonstration video. Okay, I'm going to try to demonstrate this parking brake. It's hard to move the camera where it should be when I need to move it, so I'm going to do my best. So I'm flipping it around, manual conversion in Y32 Cedric. I'm going to take it out of gear. I'm going to gauge the parking brake, okay, and hopefully it's going to stop the car here in a second. Okay, yeah, it takes a long time. So I'm not hitting the brakes. Came to a complete stop in neutral. That was with a converted parking brake to all electric. And yes, it was a pain in the ass to do. But the parking brake works. I don't know if I would call it an emergency brake. I'm not going to sell it as an emergency brake. I'm selling it as a parking brake because it takes about 8 seconds to engage. We get out of street. And I'm actually going to pull over here and put the e-brake on, cut the car off, leave it in gear because this is a very steep hill. You know what? I'm going to take it out of gear. Flip it around. The parking brake is on. Oh, I didn't engage it. Okay, let me engage it. Well, gotta have power on to engage it. Hold on a second. Gotta have power on to engage it. There we go. I can hear it engaging. Okay, so I've got it engaged on the hill I just tested, right? So I am going to pop out. Car's in gear. Nothing's on the brake. I do have some wires hanging out. That's about to be fixed. But the parking brake is on. And I'm going to get out of the car while it's on this steep hill in neutral. Parking brake engaged. Full electric conversion. So you get an idea. It's hard to tell. This is straight. So when you look at the car, it's at a very pretty, I mean, you can see it's kind of a steep hill. Okay, so parking brake works, full electric conversion. Give you a sneak peek at some of the components. It does fit underneath this completely flush, because when they built this, they gave us 3.5 inches below the box, apparently. I'm gonna disengage it so you can kind of see the motion of it. I will be making some kits, so making those available to guys with Y32s, because it's specific to this setup. The connectors are plug and play. You won't have to do any modifications to wiring. I'm going to make it completely plug and play, including the power supply for the microprocessors, which has got to be 5 volts. And then, but basically it's going to be pretty simple to even install that part. Switch becomes the switch connector becomes a power source. Long story short, for the actuator. But like I said, it'll be plug and play. It's real simple. I'm trying to work out controlling the brake light instead of doing it with the factory switch, which I thought I threw it in here. Yeah, this is the factory mechanical switch. I'm trying to run it through the microprocessor to turn the brake light off and on. I'm still working on that, so that's not debugged yet. But what's cool is the switch works the park brake actuator. Special custom bracket. Had to weld something up for that to work. Did have to drill holes for nut certs to hold the bracket to the tunnel. That is the only modification you have to do. There's no welding needed. I'm actually making it with a brace so that it helps hold the bracket in place. The Y32 is set up perfectly for this kit. And then the only thing that's time consuming and difficult is to reroute the brake cable. So the brake cable usually comes down there where the e-brake is, but this has got a clutch that I gutted the old e-brake. I'm actually using the old e-brake as my clutch pedal. I just welded a clutch arm after I cut off the e-brake pedal. I welded a clutch arm from a Z32 that had a little bit of a kick to get it over here off the pad. But in order to reroute the brake cable, you have to take the glove box apart. You have to the reason why you got to take the glove box apart is to get to the bolts that hold this piece on. That piece has got to come off. That just pull the lower piece just pulls this direction. And then you got to take off these 2 panels. And the reason why you got to take off those panels is that this surround has got to come off, which is simple. It's just a couple screws to get it off. But you take this section off first, which is 1 screw down here, same on the other side, 1 screw underneath here. So this panel comes out. And yes, I'm using the same factory panel. I just put a boot, secured it to the panel, and so I'm using the same factory panel. And if you're saying, hey, I can't use my factory panel because it's manual, if you offset it with the offset bracket, you can come up and use the same factory panel and still look pretty much factory, other than shifter boot. So this is a really cool mod. The kits, like I said, I'll make them available. You can message me on either Facebook or YouTube, and you know, I'm setting up pricing right now. But if you have any questions, just hit me up. I'm really excited to be able to offer this. I think this is going to resolve a lot of issues, because I think most of the guys that have Y32s and have done a manual swap don't have an e-brake at all. And you know, if you're going to set up for drifting, great, but it's nice to have a parking brake that's functional. So if you're getting the car, I guess it really doesn't matter about how clean it looks, because you know, if it's going to be a drift car. But if you want it to look presentable and fairly factory and stock, like it might have come that way from factory, then this is a good option. And it still retains the function of the switch, just turns it into you know, I basically took Scarecrow and gave it a brain. And now that one through wire circuit, even though it's two switches, it's really just one circuit, one continuous wire. I just turned that into a multi-function switch. But cool.